Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn. We go across the great Atlantic right now. We go to England. We're going to spend some time with Luce Brett. She's written a book called PMSL, and I'm going to tell you what that means. It's pissed myself laughing and survived. Laughing. I literally pissed myself laughing and survived. Lucy, welcome to Late Night Health. Is female incontinence that big of a deal?
Well, yes. I discovered to my cost, both personally, because I found over a period of about 10 years that my pelvic floor wasn't just holding all my bits of my body in place, but it was kind of keeping my life together. But also because the numbers are just astronomical. I know the numbers better for Europe and the UK, where it's roughly 1 in 3 women suffers from urinary incontinence. But even in the States, I think it's 1 in 4. And if you ask any of the big experts in the field, what they'll tell you is that those numbers are very underreported, because if somebody says to you, did you wet yourself, or even worse, did you leak from your bowels, people are not going to say yes, they're going to say no, because they're embarrassed. So even with doctors, people are often very shy or embarrassed or ashamed, so don't go to get help. So we know that the figures, the prevalence, the amount of people who have it is massive. But we also know that it takes on average about 7 years for a woman who regularly wets herself to go and get any help, which seems like a terrible shame. And for me, when it happened to me, quite unexpectedly at the age of 30, I found that wetting yourself a lot wasn't funny. It wasn't like a continence product commercial. I didn't feel that empowered if I used the pad in my knickers. I felt terrified and ashamed and upset going out of the house, because just putting my buggy or pushchair up a curb, just going into a shop, was fraught with danger. If I put too much stuff in my supermarket trolley, I might wet myself in the aisle.
And at what age did this start for you, if I may ask?
Of course. It started for me at the age of 30 when I had my first baby. For lots of women, they experience a little bit of incontinence post-birth, but quite often it comes a bit later in life. So that's why we have these stereotypes of old ladies who wet themselves. But I was around 30, so I was quite young. So the other issue I had, the barrier I had, was that a lot of the advice wasn't really relevant to me, because I was a working mum with 2 kids by the time my incontinence was really bad. So people would say, well, don't run to the toilet. And it's like, because what's the worst that could happen? And it would be like, well, I'd wet myself in front of my boss, which would be pretty bad, So the advice was quite hard to implement if you were a working mum.
What can a woman do to stop it? I mean, I know that there are diapers, which does not seem to be a good fix to me. Is there a way of stopping it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I wrote the book in the end, because I'm not a health expert, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, and for me, I found it very upsetting and distressing to be incontinent. And the other thing that, when you ask if it's a big deal, there's a very, very strong links between incontinence and postnatal depression, and incontinence and depression generally. So people find it very difficult often. They just don't tell anyone, so they're suffering from 2 conditions that are taboo in silence. But what can women do? Well, we know from the evidence that pelvic floor exercises can have, at least one of the more recent studies said over 80% success rate. So just improving your pelvic floor muscle tone can help enormously. And one of the problems is that because it's shameful, people might buy stuff to use on the internet or whatever and not necessarily know how to do their pelvic floors very well. So it's always better to go and speak to a doctor or a physiotherapist, a health physiotherapist, or even your midwife or whoever you see, your obstetrician, and ask to make sure you're doing them right. So pelvic floor exercises can honestly transform things for most women and get them dry within 6 or 7 weeks. So that seems to me to be quite a cheap, sensible way to proceed. There are other things too. There are obviously at the sort of more extreme end, there are surgeries you can have. But even with non-surgical things, there are also lifestyle implementations. So, for example, carrying extra weight might affect your pelvic floor, and then that's a vicious circle, because women will often try to go running after they've had a baby, or when they hit the menopause and they're worried about their weight, find they leak and then not do it. And actually, if they got a bit of help with doing their pelvic floors and with strengthening that and the rest of their muscle tone and losing some weight, they might reduce the pressure on their pelvic floor. So there's all those things. And then even in the world of diapers and pads, there's also things like pessaries, which are not the same as the ones you put up your bottom that have got medicine in, but are sort of silicone devices that you can use, which will hold up your well, not your pelvic floor, but they'll help hold up everything that's slipping down, so they'll stop you leaking as much. So there's absolutely loads that people can do, and you should definitely get incontinence checked out, because it can also be a sign of other conditions. So it's not just people who've had babies or women. I mean, men have a pelvic floor too, and many find that that begins to give out as they grow older, or if they damage it playing sports. But also people with many other conditions like neurological ones, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, MS, those conditions can also result in incontinence. So it's really important to get it checked out if you can, if you're leaking. A, for your self-esteem and your sense of yourself, because nobody should be walking around in wet knickers. That's not very nice. B, because diapers are expensive, really expensive grown-up diapers, or they certainly are in the UK. I don't know if they are in the States. And C, because it can probably be cured, but you need to work out what's causing it.
A couple of points here, and then I'm going to ask Daryl has a thought too. One, just a simple Kegel exercise is what you're talking about. That's one.
That's right, yes. Sorry, I forget that they're called Kegels in the States, of course, yes.
Yes, we call them Kegels. And the second, of course, is that if it's expensive in the UK, it's twice as expensive here in the US. Daryl, you had a thought.
Well, there was an incident that took place with Marie Osmond on stage in Las Vegas where she had an issue, and unfortunately the press got a hold of it and just ran it. It was on Entertainment Tonight, it was on Extra, it was on all these television programs, and they didn't say, hey, she needs a problem and needs help. They were just kind of making fun of it, which was fairly unfortunate.
That sort of story is really common, I think, and that's what part of my book is also about. So some of it's my personal story, but a lot of it's also about this idea that we either make jokes about it, so someone says about a horror film, or it's so scary I peed myself or whatever, or we ridicule women, especially women of a certain age, so older women, middle-aged women, and ridicule people for being incontinent. And that's exacerbated in some parts of the world where women are seen as unfit to be married, maybe even sent out of their village or community and shunned because they leak. And that seems to me to be ridiculous. If it's actually affecting 1 in 3 people, then incontinent people, if we all got together, we'd be like the 3rd or 4th biggest country in the world. Like, shouldn't we be treating that many people with kindness and compassion, especially if it's curable? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I did English literature at university. I never thought I'd write a book about weeing and about incontinence. I was truly ashamed and horrified and embarrassed, and I only wrote it down about 10 years into my story because I was so upset about exactly stories like you're telling, and women saying to me, I started feeling I was incontinent from the birth of my son, and I'd say, oh, that's terrible, and they say, oh, I leaked in a supermarket too, and I'd say, that's terrible, and then they'd say something else, and I'd say, how old is your son? And they'd say, 35. I'd say, you've spent 35 years not getting any help. And it's a huge indicator for women giving up work, for women being taken into nursing homes. And if it can be avoided or improved, it feels to me like it's a no-brainer, and none of us can necessarily solve overnight, as you know, the sort of healthcare infrastructures of the US or the UK, God help us at the moment, or anywhere. But what we could all do is at least try to leave it out with the sort of stigma and unkindness, because we've all got bodies, right? And we know they all break. It's just that if you break your ankle, people are a lot kinder to you than if your pelvic floor breaks. I talk in the book at one point when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I broke my leg. And so I have tested that out for real, and people are a lot nicer about a broken leg than they are about you leaking feces. And it's much easier to talk about with your boss.
Listen, we're running out of time. Lucy, the name of the book is PMSL, Pissed Myself Laughing and Survived the Last Taboo to Tell the Tale. Interesting book, and we really appreciate your spending some time with us, your time in England. Thank you very much, and we appreciate it. Look forward to possibly chit-chatting again at some time. I'm Mark Alyn. This is Late Night Health, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Late Night Health continues. Late Night Health is proud of our partnership with the EBC, the Evolutionary Business Council. Check them out at ebcouncil.com.
You're listening to Late Night Health with Mark Alyn. The show continues in a moment.
The latest from the greatest, the best in new music by classic rockers, with your host, the insane Daryl Wayne.
This is Alice Cooper, and if Daryl Wayne is insane, what does that make me? Criminally insane. Stick around to find out.
Many of the artist interviews for the latest from the greatest have been captured on audio book. There is a Volume 1 and Volume 2. Great information and conversations with people in the industry and people surrounded by the industry, and of course the rock stars themselves.
I'm the Reverend Al Green, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne. And I said Wayne Insane.
You can find it on Amazon or Blackstone Audio. Search for the latest from the greatest from Daryl Wayne, Darrell Wayne.
Hello, this is Weird Al Yankovic, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne, aren't you?
Recently, I met Jacqueline from Bright here in Los Angeles. She gave me a hearing exam and then showed me how to hear again with the new Signia Pure Series hearing aids, and she can give you your life back too. I hear birds chirping, birds cooing, and even my wife. They easily connect to my smartphone. The Signia hearing aids are amazing, and with the charge and go, I don't have to fiddle with batteries and hear all day long. Not hearing is frustrating for you and your family. I know you don't have a problem, but trust me, call Bright Here now for a free hearing exam, a $125 value, yours free, just for making an appointment now. There are offices throughout the Los Angeles area. Call Bright Here now at 323-424-7100. That's 323-424-7100 for a free hearing exam. There's no obligation. Call now, 323-424-7100, or visit them on the web at brighthere.com.
Welcome to Guide to the Soul. This is Robert Clancy. The greatest bridge you can cross in life is one that connects your heart with another's. Giving of yourself is the ultimate gift of receiving. Love bridges the distance between any two hearts, even if that expanse is between here and heaven. This connection is unbreakable when it's built upon true, unconditional love. So why not love unconditionally? You're not giving up anything except your fears. Love is worth more than any one heart can ever hold. That's why it's meant to be shared. Isn't it time to use your heart to show the world how big infinity is?
For more inspiration from Robert Clancy, visit guidetothesoul.com or go to the Moments with Robert page on latenightshealth.com. Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne, and we're talking with Dr. John Putahilly about his book, When Your Child Has Cancer. I just cannot think of anything that could be worse. Doctor, you're a dad.
Yes.
Do you have grandchildren?
Yes, 2 of them.
Two. Can you imagine? I mean, you've written the book, you've researched this. Wouldn't this be devastating to you as it would be to most people?
Yes, it is. So this is why, see, right now, if the parents are told your child has cancer, the parents are completely lost. They are anxious, they are afraid, and they are helpless. They have so many questions. Why did the child get it? What did I do, or what did I not do? I should have looked at it earlier or found it. All these questions will come through the parent's mind, and they are, more importantly, they are totally dependent on the healthcare team to do anything, because they're afraid what they do will make it worse or will not help the child. So this is why I wrote the book to give parents some comfort. And the comfort comes from the fact they need to know how the cancer starts. It is not because they did something wrong, because cancer cells are formed in the body, whether it is a child or an adult, from time to time, but our immune system can take care of it. Now, the question then is, why did this cancer get established in the child's body? Let's assume cancer cells are dividing at a rate of 100 new cells an hour, but the immune system is capable of killing only 99 per hour. Even that one escaping over a period of time can continue to divide and cause cancer. So it is a competition between production of cancer cells on the one side and destruction of cancer cells on the other side by the immune system. So what I am suggesting in this book is, once your child is diagnosed, yes, you cannot show the child the fear because the child reads your face. So you have to be strong. You have to get the information. You have to trust your cancer care team to take care of that part. But as a parent, you have a responsibility to help the child. And that is, if we can slow down the growth of the cancer cell, the child's immune system can take care of it. That is what this book is all about.
What you're saying then is that the power of the mind can help.
Not only the power of the mind, but there is an action that the parents can take. That is, in order for the cancer cell to grow, it needs nutrients, because the cancer cell divides just like any other normal cell. It needs power to generate ATP, or the power to divide. It needs materials, raw materials. The cancer cell gets these materials and power from our food, the main component being glucose. So if you deny the cancer cell glucose, then their rate of multiplication slows down. And if you improve the immune system of the child, then the improved immunity and reduced cancer cell growth can keep the child better or get over the cancer faster. Now, we have got improvements in medical care or cancer care that has reduced the mortality significantly from 1950s, 1970s. That means we have got almost 400,000 adults now who are survivors of childhood cancer in the United States. The problem is roughly 60% of these people will have some late effects, such as memory problems, infertility, heart failure, secondary cancers. So we need to reduce the amount of medication they have to take. And for that, we need to slow down the growth of cancer cells in the body. And this is what I am suggesting in the book, that lower the intake of grain and grain-based food, because they provide the maximum glucose for cancer cells to feed on.
So to reduce, you're saying carbohydrates and thus sugar.
Not sugar. Most of the glucose in the body comes not from intake of sugar, but from grains. When is the last time you had a snack or a meal without a grain-based product, whether it is bread or pasta or noodle or roll, or a cookie, right?
Right. You're right.
So that is absorbed into the body as glucose, and the cancer cells feed on that, and they multiply faster. So if you slow down the rate of multiplication, on top of that, you need to give the child a variety of vegetables so that the child can get over 100 different nutrients needed by the body to take care of the immune cells and the immune system. So if you strengthen the immune system on the one side, slow down the rate of multiplication of cancer cells on the other side, now the parents have a plan. Now they are in charge. They can do something rather than just sit and worry about the child. They are actively participating in the care of a child with cancer.
With COVID, is there more danger to a child with cancer than there was before COVID struck?
Yes, because now parents are unable, they're afraid to go out and give the support and even go for medical checkup, routine checkups. All these are affecting everybody. So, yes, the short answer is the isolation on top of this, the cancer care, the fear. Now we are isolated. We cannot interact. The child cannot interact with other children. All these are taking a psychological toll on the parents as well as children diagnosed with cancer. You are absolutely right.
The book is really fascinating, and it's an easy read, and I'm tactile. I like the paper that our friend Rick, your publisher, picked.
Yes. Thank you.
It's really nice, and the artwork is very comforting as well. And that leads me to the thought: how important is it to comfort a child that may be 3 or 4 years old, 5 years old, and they have to stay in a hospital setting? And right now with COVID, mom can't be there to give the child an extra hug.
It is not a very comforting time for the child, but at that age, as long as there is a caring face, they can live through that. They have resiliency, and they will come through that. The parents will suffer even more than the child because of the anxiety. How is my child doing? Who is going to be comforting the child? Will he be hungry or thirsty, or who will hold the hand? Yes, all of this we all have to suffer through. I don't know whether there is any short answer to that. But the main thing is to keep in the home environment as close to normal as possible. The parents, as I said earlier, cannot show emotional stress or fear in front of the child, because the child will feed from that. The child takes cue from the facial expression of parents. So they have to be careful. If they have information that is not very comforting, they should discuss that not in front of the child, but someplace else.
John, thank you very much for joining us. John Putuli here, When Your Child Has Cancer. I know that John is probably working on another book, and he will be back with that the next time when it's published. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. This is Late Night Health. Join us at latenighthealth.com. We'll be back.
Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Words are a critical aspect of success. How you get your point across is a crucial part of what makes anything sell. So do it right and hire a writer. Whether it's articles, blog posts, technical writings, website content, product descriptions, or ghostwriting anything from a novel to a nonfiction book about your navel, contact Servet Hassan. If you want it to sell, write it right. Email Servet at servet@servethassan.com.